This is 40K Today. Good news. If you're listening to this, we won't have to notify the ecclesiarchy of potential heresy. You're okay. Carry on, citizen.
Welcome to a special Best of 40K Today. We're your daily dose of 40K news, and we feature content creators from across the globe. We love 40K and know you do too. Today, we bring you a selection of our favorite interviews from this week. We have to say a massive thanks to our friends at Frontline Gaming for having us in on a Saturday. If you like what you hear, give us a listen during the week at 40ktoday.com, or you can find us via your favorite podcast player. I'm your host, John Damaris, and today on the program, we talk to Dallas Rappaport about Tyranids in the new edition. We also get a hobby tip from an artist who had their armory featured in White Dwarf. Brian Pullen stops by to tell us what's going on over at Tabletop Titans, and Skari and Kyle drop us some super cool info about a super cool event. In this week's Faction Focus, Beast from the Northeast, Dallas Rappaport, swings by to talk about some of the best things Tyranids bring to the table in 9th edition. All right, this week we are very lucky to be joined by Dallas Rappaport, which some of you might not have heard of, but he is a terror on the East Coast with the Tyranids, and he's here to tell us all about how to use them in 9th edition in this week's Faction Focus. Dallas, take it away.
Hey, it's great to be here with you. I think the big takeaway of Tyranids right away is they're not an army that is going to math you off the table with amazing guns or rerolls or units that you look at the stats and you're just like, wow, this is just a great unit. I think they are an army that has a lot of tricks that involve movement, reserves, and playing the mission very well. So I think you have to approach it from perspective of, I'm not going to try to just bully you off the table, but I'm going to surgically use these units to steal points from you. And then at the end of the game, you have almost nothing left. Your opponent's almost tabled you with his reroll guns that are much better than yours, but he's behind on the scoreboard big time. So I think that's really how you have to approach most matchups, if I were just to generalize how Tyranid should work.
Cool. So then you're still using Swarmlord then, right, to get those units to move. But it sounds like maybe you're changing it up and maybe not using those Stealers that everybody leaned on for so long, those Kraken Stealers. Like, are you using more of the Gaunts?
Yeah, exactly. I think, Stealers have suffered greatly, not just from points increases, but mainly just changes of the core rules as far as coherency, being able to get out of wraps, all of that stuff, being able to shoot into combat with some units, just a million reasons why Stealers aren't what you want them to be. But I do think you can take away from them their ability to move very quickly, touch stuff, control objectives, all that. But you want to transition it to more throwaway units where their goal isn't to do damage, but they're a cheaper unit that you don't mind just sending in a 10-man unit of Gaunts. They touch some stuff, they steal some objectives, and they just create value for you. So using things like Hormagaunts or Termagants, even with like maybe a small unit of Gargoyles, just because the max threat range they have, they're not OBSEC, stuff like that. So similar concepts, but you just move away from Gene Stealers who you need to survive and do damage to units are going to die. You're just going to try to steal points for them and mitigate some shooting.
Yeah, and I imagine that you'll also use them for some move blocking shenanigans, that kind of thing, because they're just throwaway units. But you can generate value by slowing, because it's only a 5-turn game. You slow down your opponent's ability to score on the mission, and thus denying them points is kind of like you scoring points.
Yeah, I mean that is a huge part of it. I think that's the thing is you can use one small Gaunt unit of whatever variety to potentially steal objectives, move block, and touch units in combat to limit their shooting, that they have to shoot certain units. And the way a lot of armies function in this edition is a big brick that kind of moves as far as like Death Guard or Sisters, or even some Marine units that just walk around the table. Being able to just limit what you just can't move is extremely valuable, especially if it involves maybe taking objectives because you moved a bunch of OBSEC bodies on objectives that were 30, 40 inches away.
Okay, and then now that we're in 9th edition and you've had a few reps, what are some units that you think people should be checking out for their Tyranid armies? Like, what are some maybe undervalued units that you think are maybe a little better in 9th than they were in 8th?
Yeah, I think Zoanthropes have been a huge buff this edition. They didn't suffer that much in the points department, but mainly this edition has seen a big transition away from garbage units of just tons of grots, guardsmen, cultists, like all that stuff, to more elite units, especially like with an extremely prevalent Space Marine meta. So Smite, just in the general rule of Smite, has gotten better just based on how the core rules and missions have dictated list building. And I also think that the way scoring is, where you need to basically survive through the turn, being able to put a unit of 5 3-up invul models on an objective is extremely hard to shift. And they also give you a unit that Tyranids don't have great access to, which is durability, just standing out in the open. Most units are pretty squishy for Tyranids, and they give you a lot of tools when it comes to that.
Yeah, and I suppose smites probably have more value because I think two of the armies that are really coming up are Custodes and Harlequins, right? And they're both smite allergic. So having that in your list is probably well positioned in the meta right now, at least the way it stands.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I mean, I played against a Custodes person, and the smites were just brutal. I mean, any of that stuff with where you can just bypass certain defensive buffs like negatives to shoot, or high invols, high toughness, any of that stuff. It just ignores all of it. And the fact that you don't have a bunch of guardsmen or cultists or other trash units in the way eating that really increases the value you get out of those units.
Okay, that makes total sense. Last question. What advice would you give somebody play if they saw Tyranids across the table from them? Like what's what they should be thinking about in the game?
I think it is. You need to ask if you don't have a full understanding of the capabilities of the army, is to ask a lot of questions. Because they're an army where you can look across for it and be like, this is army on paper is a pile of junk. It's not very good. But then all of a sudden, there's units in your deployment zone move blocking you. There's stuff all over the table getting objectives, and you're just like, how did we get here? What happened? So I think the best thing you can do is have a real understanding of the limitations of what can move. Can this move in charge? How do I stop this? And it'll really help you kind of dissect their abilities and stop them. Um, I think that's really the biggest thing because they're not an army that's just going to out efficient you, outshoot you. Like chances are, whatever army you're playing is more efficient at shooting, it's better in combat, etc. It's you need to understand of how to not get tricked by not understanding what their movement capabilities are and things like that.
Yeah, and I do think Tyranids is an army that wins in the movement phase, is how I would describe them.
Yeah, I think that's extremely accurate.
Dallas, thanks again for stopping by. If you guys want to hear a lot more about Tyranids, he's actually on Art of War this week, which will be available on the Frontline Gaming Network on Monday, or if you're a patron of the Art of War, should be available when this podcast releases. All right, Dallas, thanks again.
Yeah, thank you very much.
Okay, Simon talks to us about his Sons of Horus army that was featured in White Dwarf recently. He tells us how the idea came to be and a bit more about his beautiful paint scheme.
I'm here with Simon today, and he is going to tell us all about his army that was featured in White Dwarf. So thank you so much for being on the show.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
So for many of us, we sort of flip through White Dwarf, and we always imagine what it would be like to actually have our army featured in the magazine. And I just want to know, what does that feel like when you see your stuff on the pages?
Yeah, it's amazing. So it's pretty much a childhood dream come true.
Mhm.
There were so many armies when I was like 9 years old, and I bought my first White Dwarf, and I just I looked at them, and I never thought, my 9-year-old self never thought that I would be up there one day. But yeah, I was always, painting was always a very big part of the hobby for me. And so I just constantly worked on it. And yeah, and now we are here.
Yeah. I'm not shocked to know that you've been painting for a really long time because your collection is beautiful. Have you
Yeah.
been collecting your Sons of Horus for a long time, or is this sort of a newer project for you?
It's kind of an ongoing project. When I started in the hobby when I was 9, which is pretty much like over 20 years ago now, I was pretty much only into Xenos because I thought Space Marines are pretty boring because they're just humans in bigger armor.
Yeah.
But as soon as I discovered like the Horus Heresy novels, this changed for me because the Space Marines in there have so much depth to their character, and I think you don't really understand like Space Marine culture until you read those books because the Codex is not really giving away that much. So it is kind of a longer ongoing project for about like, I think I started 6 years ago.
Wow, that's awesome. And your collection is amazing. You've got some Forge World stuff in there and some Primaris stuff. You've been kind of getting a little bit of heat online about how you have collected your army, but was there any sort of thought process going into it of like something you wanted to achieve, or did you just sort of collect stuff that you liked the look of over time?
Okay, so when I start a new army, it's usually that I have a like an idea in my mind how I want to play it. So it's like more rules driven, and then I just see that I can get a competitive force out of it. And once I have that, then I start to just roam around the background and add stuff to it that I like. But like the first idea is always like have a 2,000 point army that works with 40k with tournaments and stuff. And since I picked up the Horus Heresy novels, like the Sons of Horus were always the legion that I think was the coolest.
Okay.
And like I said in the article, I have kind of a taste for the bad guys. And the heat you mentioned was like because people thought it would be like a true Horus Heresy army, which it isn't. I mainly play 40k with it, which doesn't mean that I wouldn't go down the route and play Horus Heresy in a day. The main problem is that we lack a player base here. So the true heresy I've been doing is that I play them as Ultramarines. Some people didn't take that kindly.
Yeah. Well, that's the cool thing about the hobby is that you can do whatever you want for it. Like your war dollies are yours to paint and play however you choose, and I think that that's one of the coolest things about this hobby personally.
Yeah, it is. It is.
Yeah. What drew you originally to the Sons of Horus? You kind of mentioned that you like the baddies, but was there something in the lore that really captured your imagination?
Oh, it was pretty much everything. Like the whole like history of the Sons of Horus from like when the novel started. Horus was a pretty great guy. He was very relatable. He was nice. He was like a cool big brother, and like the whole issue he has with the Imperium in the end, and his evolution is something that I really like, and I really like to explore in my miniatures.
Hmm. So, one last question. There is a lot of struggle for people when they are trying to paint Sons of Horus color scheme because even like Forge World and Games Workshop can't seem to come together to like tell you how to paint an accurate color scheme, but you've nailed it. Can you share your recipe with us?
Of course, like the recipe is printed in White Dwarf, but like for completion, I can just give it a quick rundown. So I experimented a lot, and there was definitively one scheme that I settled for. That is like the green is like Cabalite green applied via an airbrush over a black primer. Sometimes you need to do that twice because like the black really shows through after the first one. Then I do highlights with Sybarit green, also via an airbrush. And again, a third highlight with the airbrush Sybarit green and Wraithbone. About, I would say, 75 to 25%.
Okay.
And after that, it looks really weird because it's very, very bright. But this is intentional because after that, I shade the whole thing with a 50-50 mix of Coelia green shade and Lamia medium. And that takes the whole thing down a lot. And it also pulls the whole thing together. And after that, it's pretty much like edge highlighting with Wraithbone and do the whole like weathering with typhus corrosion, blacks, and with the last step is applied via a sponge.
Oh wow,
And
that is really awesome.
Green.
Yeah, it is absolutely stunning, and we'll make sure to post back to your Instagram. But everybody should go out and check out that White Dwarf because the photos that they took are also just so fantastic. But thank you so much for being on the show. It was a pleasure to have you and to find out more about this incredible army.
Yeah, thank you. And if the people want to see more, they can head over to my Instagram account, and I also have there a full tutorial of the green, and I will continue to do like the gold I used in there and the other techniques will be there sooner or later.
Perfect. Super helpful. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
How cool would it be to have your army in White Dwarf? Welcome back. Our friends over at Tabletop Titans are putting together a competitive tournament for us all to watch and enjoy. Brian Pullen stops by to give us all the details. Brian, welcome back to the show. We're very excited to have you. I saw a really cool announcement from you guys. You want to tell the listeners what's going on?
Yeah, thanks for having me. Over at Tabletop Titans, our YouTube channel, we're running a cool event, which is called the Tabletop Titans Tournament. That's four T's. And basically what it's going to be is a single elimination tournament that we're going to play live on our channel in 7 different games. Basically, we've been missing out on playing competitive 40K, as many people have, stuck at home. And this is the closest thing we can get. And we're hoping to put it online so that everyone can get a little taste of new 9th edition competitive 40K in this kind of time when we can't go to tournaments.
Yeah, so we're going to have some competitive play, and you guys have, I believe, 8 different factions. Is that correct?
Yeah, exactly. We haven't necessarily tried to pick like the top 8 factions, although we have many of the top 8 factions represented, but we've picked a mixture of things that we think are interesting. So we have Death Guard and Tau, which is actually the first matchup happening on Saturday, the 22nd. And then we have Custodies and Harlequins happening on the 25th, Craft World and Admech on the 27th, and then White Scars and Orcs on the 29th.
Those are a lot of interesting matchups. So handicap this for me. Who are you betting to win it all?
So the cheap answer would be go with the armies that are already doing the best. Like Harlequins and Custodies are already in a really great position. I think Space Marines are in a great position as well, but White Scars aren't necessarily the top performing. So probably one of Custodies or Harlequins are in the best spot just because of their current win record. But when I look at the field, I don't know, it seems like a hard game for those 2 factions. I think Death Guard's in a really great spot. That faction is so amazing. And I'm hard picked to pick a faction that doesn't have a shot at the very least.
Yeah, well, and I mean, you didn't even mention Admech, right? Which a lot of people think is going to be very strong in 9th edition. So, yeah, it should be a really, really, really fun field. And like you said, Space Marines are Space Marines.
Exactly.
As a matter of fact, I was talking to John Lennon, and he thinks White Scars are the best of the Marines.
So do I. So. I think so too. They just are a lot harder to play. And so early in the edition, you sometimes find armies that are kind of more straightforward to get the wins because people don't have the practice in. Whereas White Scar is one of those armies that takes a lot of practice, so you can't just be great with them your first time out. And that's actually one of the reasons why I'm not as confident about them. I'm going to be playing the White Scars in this tournament, and I've only played maybe 5 or 6 games with them, and so they're hard. They're a hard faction to master.
Right. So who else is piloting armies in this tournament?
So it's actually just Adrian and I. That's one of the interesting things. Adrian and I are going to be playing all of them. So it's a very unique format where I have 4 armies. He has 4 armies. The funny thing is, it might end up being that all of his armies win, and then I have to end up piloting some of his armies in the second half of the tournament. But in the first round, at least, we're only playing our own factions.
That's exciting. I'm excited. I'm going to have to tune into some of those for sure. So how can people find it? Like you obviously gave some dates. They can find it on your YouTube channel. But is the schedule, like, what's the overall schedule? How long is it going to take for you guys to finish this up? And
so it's 7 games because it's single elimination. The first round is starting this Saturday, the 22nd, and it goes until the following Saturday. And then basically the next week is round 2, which is just 2 games. And then that final Saturday is the finale. And so basically it's just 2 weeks. So we'll play them. We're going to do 3 games a week, essentially, and then 1 extra. And we'll have it done in 2 weeks.
Oh, that's awesome. That's awesome. You know what I think I might do? I think I might bet on you, Brian. I don't know which faction you're going to pilot to victory, but I'm going to bet on you because
Adrian and I have about a 50-50 win record in 9th edition on the channel so far. I actually think with last night's game, he might just have pulled ahead on me. We're going to see. We both have some good factions in this. I'm playing the Tau, the Custodies, the Admech, and the White Scars. So I've got great factions. So we'll see.
So do you guys have like a little friendly rivalry going on? You actually keep track of the win-losses?
We actually don't, but we just talked about it last night because I get the reputation on the channel as the one who only rolls sixes, and Adrian has a reputation of rolling terribly, and everything going badly for him. But it's a funny reputation because sometimes I do get these crazy rolls, but we all do. But it's kind of part of my personality on the show, we just kind of stopped to think about it for the first time yesterday.
Oh, that's amazing. That's amazing. Well, you guys have wonderful chemistry. Your battle reports are very informative and well produced. So kudos to you guys. I know you guys have had an explosion of popularity since the launch of 9th edition, but that directly correlates with all the work you guys have put in, because I have no idea. To me, it looks like voodoo and witchcraft. I have no idea how you guys put out so many high quality videos in such a short time.
Yeah, 9th edition was a lot of work, but we had a lot of fun putting it all out. And now we're kind of in a steady state of 2 live games a week. Although for this tournament, it's going to be 3 a week, but yeah.
Yep, because you can't help yourself.
Exactly. We're just excited for this event.
Yeah. I mean, I think everybody's just excited for 9th edition, right? It'll be really nice when we have a vaccine and COVID's in the rearview mirror and we can get back to, rolling dice and hanging out with our friends. But this will be a nice substitution in the short term, I think.
Yeah, this is the best I could do to give myself a little bit of competitive play in the meantime. But yeah, nothing's a substitute for getting out to those big GTs.
Yep. All right, Brian, thanks so much.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I'm rooting for Brian. Who all do you think will win? Skari and Kyle stopped by to talk about the big game and try to explain to us exactly what 120,000 points look like. No, I didn't misspeak. 120,000 points on the table. Our own Tanya Gates stops by to get us all the details.
Oh no, they just came out of the woodworks. Oh no, they're grots. They're grots. There's snotlings everywhere. Run for your lives.
All right, well, I'm here with Skari and Kyle today. Nice to have you guys on the show. Say hello.
Hello.
Hi there, everyone.
And we're here to talk about the big game. So let's get started. I'm going to start with a question for Skari. So this is the second annual big game, but how did the idea originally come about?
So Kyle owned a lot of orc models, and he was like, I want to play with all of my orc models. And I was like, that sounds like a fantastic idea. So Kyle was like pressuring me and hassling me. He was like, let's set this up. Let's do it. And I was like, amazing. He lobbied me hard. And we ended up setting up a day where he could bring his entire orc collection, which is a lot of orcs. And we got a hodgepodge of other hobbyists together to stem the tide of the horde of orcs. And therefore, the big game was created.
Oh, yeah.
And COVID did set this one back a little bit. However, we are doing it this weekend.
Yeah.
That's right. You doubled your collection size.
Almost, yeah.
Yeah, so Kyle, when we say the big game, how big are we actually talking?
It's around 250 pounds of models.
Jeez.
I'm using weight.
Well, this is just the orcs.
This is just the orc. Yeah,
That's right. But in terms of like layman's terms, it's about 120,000 points on the table from both sides.
Yeah. 60,000 are painted, all bad moons, all orcs, smaller models. It's going to be fun. It's going to
be a lot of fun. I'm super, super pumped.
So, what kind of space do you need to put that many models onto a game table?
We're going to be using 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, about 10 6x4s all pushed together.
Basically, we're making a small tournament and saying, here, the table.
The one big table.
That's incredible. And how many people are you recruiting to help you pilot each side?
Well, because of COVID, we can't have a crazy big group of people. However, we have about 10 people or so combined between war bosses that will help Kyle move all his orcs and the Imperial hodgepodge with Eldari allies normally that composes the opposition.
And I get to be a war boss for the weekend. I'm so excited. Thank you for having me, you guys.
We're excited to have you, our very own correspondent for 40K today.
Oh, yeah.
So, Kyle, are there going to be any unusual models on the table since, you are kind of known for your custom printed stuff?
A fair chunk of the orc army is going to be 3D printed and freshly designed, so it's going to be a lot of models that people won't recognize right away. They're going to be profiled very close to what the Games Workshop stuff is, so it's going to be a lot of really big and cool models. Some that are the size of small children. They're going to be bigger than that.
Well, I'm staring at 2 Warlord Titans right now, and that's some hefty Warlord Titan orcness.
You can use the gun as a cosplay gun. It's full size. You could carry that easily.
I think someone could be scared if they ran into that in an alley in a dark night.
And how about on the non-orc side? Are there going to be any cool models on there, or?
I think we're mainly using a lot of GW models and Forge World. There's lots of Forge World, so lots of knights. There's going to be a Warlord Titan from Forge World coming up. There's going to be a lot of probably some Warhound Titans, maybe some knights themselves, and then some of the fortifications that you never see in regular 40K.
It's a game to show off the collections.
Correct. It's a collective collection showdown.
So if people want to enjoy this with you, you guys are going to be streaming, correct?
That's right. We will be streaming on Saturday and Sunday of this weekend on the Skaredcast Twitch page.
Excellent. Well, I get to hop on a plane really soon to join you guys, and I'm so excited. And thank you so much for being on the show.
Thank you for having us.
Yeah, no problem. Anytime.
Oof, that sounds amazing. I'm going to say that one more time just for fun. 120,000 points, people. Okay, here it comes. It's time for Model of the Week.
It's the model of the day, the model of the day, the model of the day.
Every day during our regular weekday show, we feature a model of the day, and we've been able to show off some stunning work this week. This week's model of the week is one you might have already seen, a Trader Guard Lehman Russ tank that is just grimy and gross in all the best ways possible, brought to us by Richie P on Instagram. It looks like it's seen many a battlefield. I love the use of weathering and battle damage, but the very best details are all the graffiti adorning this beauty. It's very subtle, and you have to look for it, but it's very, very cool. The more you look at this model, the more details you will see. Putting this on the table would be amazing. If you have a model that you think we should feature on the show, or you've seen a model that should be featured on the show, let us know by using our hashtag on Instagram, hashtag 40K Today, or just toss us a message on Facebook. We take submissions that way too. And that's it for this week. Thank you so much for joining us. I hope you'd enjoyed getting a peek at the fun stuff we did this week. A big thanks to our content producer, Alex Boehner, our social media superstar, Tanya Gates, and our technical producer, Seamus Ronan, for all their hard work once again in putting this program together. If you liked what you heard on the show today, make sure you come check us out at 40ktoday.com or on your favorite podcast platform. We do a 15-minute show every day with the kind of information that was found in today's show. We'll see you next week. Until then, for Paul Murphy and Steve Joel and the rest of the 40K Today team, I'm John Damaris, and that's what's happening in 40K Today.